Good evening. Welcome to tonight's mostly virtual North Andover League of Women Voter Candidate Forum. Our candidates are joining us live via Zoom, while some of us are here in the North Andover CAM studio. I am your moderator, Hartel Johnson, with the League of Women Voter, Greater Haverhill. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise as you're willing and able. I pledge allegiance to the flag, to the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our league has a history of hosting nonpartisan candidates forum like this one. We encourage, engage, and actively participate in town governments. To find out more, please visit and like the League of Women Voters of Andover and North Andover Facebook page. Election day for North Andover local election will be on Tuesday, March 30th. Voters can vote in person following any and all COVID-19 safety protocols, or you can vote by mail. To get your ballot to vote by mail, you must complete an application by 5 p.m. on March 24th. Applications for 2021 elections are available on Town Clerk's website. New year, new application. So if you voted by mail in the fall, you would need to complete a new application. A new application to do so this spring. Ballot can be mailed into Town Clerk office or dropped off at a secure ballot drop box located behind Town Hall. The event you're watching now is a forum, not a debate, as candidates will be answering questions that were submitted by league members, community members, and students in the 8th grade civic classes at North Andover Middle School prior to this event. You can also submit questions during this forum if you're watching live. Email your questions now to lwvanaquestions@gmail.com. Questions must apply to all candidates running for a particular office. During this forum, you will see 3 panels of candidates. The first panel tonight will feature the uncontested candidate running for Housing Authority, Max Butterbrook, and candidate for moderator, Mark Desalvo. The second panel will include select board candidates running for 2 seats, Joseph Finn, Janice Phillips, and the incumbent, Richard Valencourt. And the third panel will feature candidates for 2 seats on the school committee, David Brown, Joe Hicks, incumbent Andrew McDewitt, Pamela Petrowski, and Rebecca Strong. In terms of statements and answers, candidates, you will have 2 minutes present opening statements and 1 minute closing statements. You will have 1 minute to answer each question. Please keep an eye on the timer on your screen. Behind that timer is League member Heather. When you see the timer end, please finish your response. If you continue speaking while after the end sign appears, I will say thank you and move on to the next candidate. Our goal is to cover as many topics as possible. I will also ask participants to mute themselves when they are not speaking. Please silence any cell phones or other devices that could interrupt your comments. If anyone has any technical difficulties, we will continue on to the candidate or questions and go back when they rejoin us. Let's begin. First panel. During the first panel, we will hear from 2 uncontested candidates, Max Butterbrook, who is running for Housing Authority, and the incumbent Mark Desalvo, who is running for Moderator. Candidates, please give a quick thumbs up if you can see the timer and if you're hearing everything okay. Excellent. We will begin with the opening statement and reminding you again, 2 minutes, and we will start with Max.
Good evening. My name is Max Butterbrook. I'm running unopposed for position on the North Andover Housing Authority Board. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for hosting this Meet the Candidates Forum. Voter education is incredibly important, and I thank you for serving in this capacity. Like I said, my name's Max. I'm 25 years old, and I've lived in town since my family moved here in 1999. I've been intimately involved with housing-related issues for the last 3 years, and I want to use my experience and legal knowledge to serve the residents of the Housing Authority and their families. I work at a local law firm specializing in residential real estate, and I also participate in a housing discrimination clinic to protect access to housing for all. I've loved my time in North Andover. I've been an active citizen in town since I was 16. I participated in my first campaign in town at that age and became inspired to get more involved in town issues. I have served as a citizen advocate at town meeting and have never missed a town meeting or election since I've been of voting age. North Andover is a very special place to me, and I'm honored to be presented the opportunity to give back to my community with my learned experiences. It is my desire to see the Housing Authority function at the highest level possible, and this is why I've decided to run, because I believe that we can do more. We can do more to educate people on what the Housing Authority is and does. The most common question I got when gathering signatures was, what is a housing authority? So let me tell you. The Housing Authority is a board independent from the town government that receives state and federal funds to provide adequate, safe, and affordable housing for the elderly, disabled, and low-income families in our community. I also believe that we can do more to advocate for funding from the state and federal governments to support our residents, and we can then use those funds to improve our existing units. As we continue to look for ways to make our town even better, we must ask ourselves how we can do more and how we can improve our community here in North Andover. I humbly ask for your support in an effort to build on the status quo. Please remember to vote for me on March 30th. Thank you.
Thank you, Max. We'll move on to Mark. Your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Mark Desalvo. I've had the privilege of serving as your town moderator for the last 9 years. You've heard me say over and over again that my obligation is to run a fair, open, and efficient town meeting. Last year, everything changed. The word safe needed to be added to that, and it had to be an overriding concern. In the obligation of the continuity of government, I established, frankly, protocols in collaboration with many people in our town government that happened to be adopted as the standard for almost every other town meeting in Massachusetts and beyond. You deserve to be quite proud of that. We had our first open air al fresco town meeting last June, as you recollect. And to many people, it was, why can't we do this every year? Well, let's break some news right now. Our town meeting is scheduled for mid-May by town charter. The moderator has unique authority under emergency legislation to choose not to conduct a town meeting in the usual manner. And I have decided to use that unilateral authority, and in consultation and agreement with the select board, we've concurred that it's important that we choose to move town meeting to the June timeframe once again. It will be once again an al fresco meeting, and we'll use largely the exact same protocols that we had in the past. We do this in order to have, first, a safe and then fair, open, and efficient town meeting, so we as a community can make good judgments for all.
Thank you, Mark. And now we'll move on to Housing Authority questions. And Max, these questions are from the 8th grader and community member. In description, it's described Housing Authority is responsible for safe, affordable housing, economic opportunity, and suitable living environment from discrimination. What are your goals, and how do you think your skill set will enhance the work of the Housing Authority?
So the Housing Authority currently manages 297 affordable housing units. They're spread across 32 buildings, and 12 of these buildings are nearly 60 years old. So we should be doing more to bring these units up to contemporary living conditions. But I will use my skills as an advocate, my legal knowledge, and my passion for the town to achieve the Housing Authority's mission. Through my experiences in real estate and law school, I developed practical knowledge of the local, state, and federal laws regarding real estate and housing needs. My experiences allow me to understand the perspective of all the parties involved in housing. And I want to use my skills and I want to improve the units so we can live up to the mission and we can ensure adequate, safe, and suitable housing for all of our community's residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question again. We'll continue with you, Mark. So we'll ask you about 3 questions. Max, we'll ask you 3 more questions and then we'll go on to Mark. So the
Sure.
next question is from a 8th grader. Approximately how many North Andover residents are currently without stable, safe, affordable living situation? And how can Housing Authority help them find solution in this coming year?
Well, the applicant list is very long and it comes from multiple different factors. So I don't know exactly how long the list is, but I know it's very long and it takes a while to get on to get a position. Obviously, we'd want to improve our current units so we can add more in terms of making the space we have currently more efficient, so making more units in the space we do have. But also we want to look into developing more units in a sustainable and responsible fashion. We want to make sure we have the units to provide for everyone so everyone can enjoy North Andover like we all do.
Thank you. Next question. Do you think Royal Crest development is a good idea?
So the Royal Crest is a private project outside the jurisdiction or purview of the Housing Authority, but it is the mission of the Housing Authority to promote affordable housing in town. So I think responsible development is good for the town, and I do hope to work with these developers to include affordable housing units in this project. Like any proposed development project, the town should consider it very carefully. We want to make sure property in town is productive, but also that the land is being developed sustainably. I don't think a moratorium or a full stop on development in town is a solution. These apartments and multifamily developments are the only way our elderly, our young people, or disabled people in low-income families can afford to live here in town.
Thank you. And the final question, how can voters find out more about you before March 30th election?
Well, they can go to my Facebook page, Max Butterbrook. I'll be there. All my contact information is on there, including my personal cell phone number and email. I encourage anyone to call me at all if they want any question about Housing Authority, but especially those 8th graders that submitted questions. I fell in love with politics when I was in high school as a sophomore. I met a teacher that made me fall in love with it. So I really encourage them, if you want to run, you want to get involved in politics, you should do that.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll move on to Mark. Moderator, your first question is, what are some lessons learned from running town meeting during pandemic that will guide you in future town meetings?
Well, there's a lesson to be learned in every town meeting, whether we're amidst pandemic or not, I promise you. Most normally, I admit my mistakes fully in front of everybody in the audience. Always, one down right away, get it done early and move on. But the most important lesson is that we have to respect the notion of participatory democracy, and that no matter that we have a pandemic infected, if you will, town meeting, it needs to be true to the responsibility of participatory democracy, that there is open conversation, that people have the opportunity to present their opinion, to make the issue of the moment better on behalf of not just the people who are in attendance at town meeting, but all 30,000 plus residents of our community.
Thank you. Okay, this question is from 8th grader and community member. Who will be your appointee to Finance Committee, and what qualification are you looking for in these appointees?
That's an excellent question, and it's one of the hidden things about being a town moderator. The most consequential work that we do is actual appointment to the Finance Committee. The Finance Committee is an unheralded but extraordinarily consequential organization that recommends all budget and finance-oriented articles to the town meeting. It has been my desire to appoint a Finance Committee that is disparate in terms of geography, of gender, of race, ethnicity, and most importantly, opinion. And I have hewed to that obligation throughout my 9 years and will continue to do so. I don't have a list of people that I'll pull out of my pocket and choose to appoint at any one time. Each appointment fits the moment in terms of what's in front of our community, but it will continue to be people of extraordinary capacity.
Thank you. Next question. You have surveyed voters and had people collect data at town meetings to help understand voters' thoughts and improve how town meeting is run. What are your takeaway from these efforts, and will they continue?
Well, that's excellent, and thank you for noticing over the course of these 9 years that I've tried to be innovative in reaching out to the community around the efficacy of town meeting. I learned early on 2 things. A, always ask people. They will welcome providing you an opinion, and sometimes you actually learn from that opinion. And number 2, choose to listen. And when I choose to listen, I did things like establishing and keeping childcare opportunities for those parents who have the opportunity, can have the opportunity rather, to come to town meeting, to improve the efficiency of the meeting with the opportunity for things even just like automatic vote tabulation, so that everybody can see what the count is at any one time. Something, unfortunately, that we're not going to be able to continue in our al fresco mode. But at some moment in time, we'll get back to indoor town meetings. We can sit a little more closely together and continue those innovations and take advantage of the circumstances that I've just noted.
Thank you. Next question. This is from an 8th grader. What is your favorite thing about your job as a town moderator? I
think I love most the tradition of it. Since 1646, we have had a town meeting in North Andover. Now, at that time, only white men of a certain religion who were landowning had the opportunity to participate in town meeting. Thankfully, that has completely changed. But the tradition of participatory democracy, of recognizing that sometimes it's hard and difficult, but it is the best system on earth, bar all others. And I delight in keeping myself as the steward of that tradition.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. And as we go into our closing, you each have 1 minute for your closing, and I will start with Mark.
Thank you. I've been honored to work as your town moderator. I'm particularly pleased that good people like Max Butterbrook, whom I elevated to a citizen advocate role, has chosen to expand that. That participatory democracy is really, really important. Every opportunity that we can for people to participate in voting at town elections, in coming to town meeting. Many of you have seen the majesty of a moment when somebody stands up and asks a question that nobody else has ever thought the answer of, or states an opinion, and it changes the room or the field, if you wish. And those magic opportunities are what I live for the benefit of the community. We have an obligation, and I have that obligation as steward, to make sure that we have a safe, fair, open, and efficient town meeting. I believe I've demonstrated that over the last 9 years, and I look forward to doing so in the coming 3.
Thank you, Mark. Now, Max, your closing.
Absolutely. Thank you. Mark, it's an honor to be on this panel with you. You know, you got me into politics in town when I was 15 or 16 years old, and now here we are 10 years later on our first panel together. So I just wanted to say I'm honored to be presented the opportunity to give back to my community and use my experience in this office. I've fought to support fair access to housing in the past, and I will continue to lead North Andover as we work to guarantee more housing and fair pricing to all of our residents. It's my desire to see the Housing Authority function at the highest level possible, and it's my goal to advocate for more funding from the state and federal government for our Housing Authority. We can improve our units, and we can look into responsibly developing more. Like I said, I'm excited for this opportunity and we can do more. Thank you to League of Women Voters for those who attended, and I appreciate the opportunity to share with you my vision for the Housing Authority. And lastly, I'm asking you to support me, Max Butterbrook, on March 30th. Thank you.
Thank you both for sharing your ideas. If you would like to vote for Max Butterbrook or Mark Desalvo, please remember to cast your ballot on Tuesday, March 30th at the North Andover High School between 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. or vote by mail. Visit the town clerk's website to get a vote by mail application. Now our North Andover Cam magician will be making the candidates running for Select Board appear. During this panel, we will hear from 3 candidates running for 2 seats on Select Board: Joseph Finn, Janice Phillips, Richard Valencourt. Candidates, please remember to address the camera and keep your eyes on the timer so we can cover as many topics as possible. Candidates, please give a thumbs up if you can see your timer and hear everything okay. Thumbs up if you can hear. Excellent. We will begin with open statement. And again, to remind you, you have 2 minutes. We'll start with Joseph. Joe.
Thank you. My name is Joe Finn, and I'm running for a seat on the Select Board. One of the reasons for running is because I am concerned about the rapid growth of our town and the impact on our municipal services. In reference to a 2018 report, it was determined that North Andover, based on 2015 housing data, had a healthy inventory of multifamily units. And there was concerns by the residents at that time about limited school capacity, traffic, potential loss of natural resources and open spaces. So what happened? What we've seen is an acceleration of growth in the high density housing. In that report, it states there were 1,166 units that have been recently built or about to be built, and this doesn't include the redevelopment project at Royal Crest. In an effort to respond to the residents, I plan to propose a 2-year moratorium on multifamily units and for the town to conduct a comprehensive study to determine the impact of this recent increase in construction of multifamily dwellings in our town. What type of experience do I bring to the board? I have executive level experience in budgeting, human resources, procurement, labor relations, and policy making over a 30-year government career. I served as the Executive Special Agent in charge for the Office of Inspector General for the Postal Service and worked with some of the highest ranking officials in the Department of Justice, to include the U.S. attorneys themselves, heads of federal law enforcement agencies, and Postal Service executives. Prior to that, I served in numerous positions in Postal Service operations, to include postmaster, tour superintendent, area manager, labor relations rep, and I believe this type of leadership experience can help me come up with some creative solutions to issues facing our town. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Janice?
I have spent my entire life working for and serving others. And when there is a need, an opportunity to contribute, I jump in, all in. With the privilege of being elected comes the opportunity to elevate my involvement in our community and get to work on behalf of all residents. Whether it's coordinating the Farmers Market Veterans Food Security Program, supporting our school's PTO, managing the Front Steps Project, an amazing community effort that raised over $20,000 for local organizations, serving on the board of the North Andover Merchants Association, or managing the Neighbors in Need diaper and formula program, my commitment getting to work for our town provides a deep perspective into the pulse of our community. One thing is certain, public speaking is not my specialty, but I can assure you, no one is going to work harder, conduct more research, demand more facts, and be more transparent than me. I will get to work for you, building an inclusive community through open communication and thoughtful collaboration, and focus to getting to work on key issues like continued recovery for individuals and small businesses from the damaging impacts of both the Columbia gas disaster and the COVID crisis. By the way, if you need assistance scheduling a vaccination appointment, you can call the statewide number 211 for help. School funding, especially relating to our current space challenges, addressing development concerns, and smart growth for our town, like the Amazon project I worked to pass at town meeting. Getting to work on behalf of all residents is number one. I will continue the work I'm already doing to deepen our roots, improve communication and engagement, and facilitate thoughtful collaboration. I respectfully ask for your vote on March 30th. I'm ready to get to work.
Thank you, Janice. Richard?
Hi, I'm Dick Valencourt. I'm running for re-election to the North Andover Select Board. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters, the moderator, the magicians at NACAM, and my fellow town-wide candidates for their participation tonight. I've been proud to serve North Andover these past 9 years as a member of our Select Board. I believe over those 9 years, I've gained the experience and demonstrated the commitment and drive and leadership to continue to move North Andover forward. During my time on the Select Board, we've seen some incredible accomplishments in North Andover, such as 8 years of consensus budgets presented at town meeting, and we're heading into the 9th. Sustained AAA bond ratings, completion of the facilities master plan, which was a plan that brought us some incredible new buildings and facilities in town. This was a tremendous collaborative effort between volunteers, town staff, and even elected officials. We've had some innovations too, like the creation of the playground master plan, which is almost complete with the Appleton Playground just being completed. And this will facilitate the updating of all 11 of our public playgrounds in North Andover. We hired a community support coordinator to help provide mental health services to families and individuals in need. We've qualified for hundreds of thousands of dollars in green grant money, added electric vehicles to our municipal fleet, expanding our sustainability committee, adding textile recycling services, and being recognized as a green community in Massachusetts. North Andover has not been without its challenges. Like our neighbors, we were rocked by the Columbia gas explosions, and like the world, we were closed down by COVID-19. When these disasters hit, we as a town stood together and worked hard to help our residents and businesses that were in need. We still have a long way to go, but as a town, I have faith that we'll come out stronger and better prepared for the next challenge. It's now, it's how we celebrate the victories and handle those challenges as a community that make North Andover a great place to live, work, learn, and play. I am respectfully asking for your vote on Tuesday, March 30th, as I seek re-election to the Select Board. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. So again, to remind you, we have 1-minute questions, and these questions are from 8th graders and community members. The first question will start with Janice. And this is from an 8th grader. What thinking process do you plan to go through when you are making an important decision brought before the board?
It's a wonderful question. The thing that is most important to me as we process things with the board is that we actually seek all of the community input and bring everybody to the table and make sure that everybody who has a stake in anything we're discussing has the opportunity to contribute and feel like their voice is heard. So I vow to work to do that. I do that day in and day out in our community anyway, bringing people together and working for the greater good. So I will certainly continue that work as we move forward.
Thank you. Richard, same question, I can repeat. What thinking process do you plan to go through when you are making an important decision brought before the board?
Yes, thank you for that question. Absolutely. One of my process involves walking. I like to walk in the woods in town, and we have some great open space facilities in town, and I enjoy being out there almost daily with my dog, and that's part of my process. I like to work things through my brain and think about things as I'm just out in the woods walking through. But also, it's important to speak and make sure you're communicating with those stakeholders that have important decisions, or when these important decisions impact. When I was on the zoning board, one of the things that I always thought of was, how would the neighbors in that neighborhood feel, and how would they react to this project? Because at the end of the day, I wasn't the one that was going to be living in that neighborhood. So you always want to include and ensure that you're considering the stakeholders when you're going through any kind of a process to make a large decision like that. Due diligence, that's the bottom line.
Thank you. Joe, same question. What thinking process do you plan to go through when you are making an important decision brought before the board? You want to mute? Unmute your...
I am sorry.
That's okay.
What I like to do is kind of start at the end. I want to find out what the impact it is on the community, maybe over a 5 or 10 year period. What I'm really concerned with any decision we make, first of all, I do want to talk to the stakeholders, go around and see what their needs are and get their opinions on any type of decisions that's really going to impact the town, impact the community. But I'm also concerned with what is valued by the people in our town. And a lot of times what we look at is it's the great school systems, it's the open space, it's natural resources. And then I want to know, what are the major concerns of the people in the town? And that's where I start. And I think that will help us get to where we want to go in terms of what is needed and what has been expressed by the residents in our town.
Thank you. Next question, this will go to Richard. From a community member, what do you think of the current state of North Andover Financial Reserve? Are they adequate, and have they been deployed appropriately?
Well, I certainly think we do have, at this point, adequate reserves. We have been very diligent about our budgeting over these last 8 or 9 years. That has put us in a position where we have a nice, healthy reserve. We have been very conservative about how we've used that money, and we've tried to retain it for those rainy day funds. We've also been able to work down our debt quite a bit over the last year, retiring, I think, $600,000 in debt. So we've been very, very conservative. We've been very transparent in our budgeting, and I think we've done a very good job ensuring that the reserves are healthy and that they're wisely used.
Thank you. Next question, Joe. This is from an 8th grader. What is one of the most pressing problems in North Andover, and how do you plan to solve it if you were elected to the select board?
It is the rapid growth of our town with multi-unit housing in North Andover. This was expressed in a report that came out in 2018. Just based on 2015 housing data, we knew we had a healthy inventory of multifamily units. Matter of fact, it's 11% higher than it was in the town next to us. And so when our residents express concern over certain things, like the traffic and the limited school capacity, what happened? We accelerated that growth, and that's become part of the problem, in my opinion. So what I am doing is trying to take a step back, try to offer a plan of a 2-year moratorium on those multifamily units. And hopefully after that, we'll have a better handle on it. But let me tell you one thing. I don't read this thing from the town manager. Here it is. We have a significant change in our market rate housing over the last few years, not only in single family housing, but also in multifamily housing, which has caused a delta for compliance in 40B. And she later said, until we get that percentage, you're going to fall victim to predatory 40B, which would be something that maybe is not where you want to be. And that's the problem. She is ringing the alarm bell here, that we have had too much building over the last 4 or 5 years.
Thank you. Next question. Actually, that would be the same question for you as well, Janice, from an 8th grader. What is one of the most pressing problem in North Andover, and how do you plan to solve it if you were elected to the select board?
We have a lot of issues that are facing our town right now, including inappropriate development and moving our schools forward. But the very most prominent issue we need to deal with right now is getting our residents vaccinated. Anybody who wants to be vaccinated needs to be vaccinated as quickly and easily as possible. And that is the most prominent issue facing our community right now, because that is how we get our kids back into school safely. That is how we get back to work supporting our small businesses. This is how we get the opportunity to move forward in our community. And so I will work, as I do in the community, to bring easy access to those things in any way that I can, because I really do look forward to us moving forward.
Thank you. Next question is a 2-part question, and I'll start with you, Joe. What are your thoughts on housing and retail development and planning going on in North Andover? How will these impact our community, and what role will you play as a select board on the projects such as these?
I think we need to be thoughtful and more deliberative on development. I think we need to now focus more on the retail end as opposed to the housing development end. And as I just mentioned, I think we really have a housing crisis. We have now put ourselves in a position, in my opinion, is that the developers now are really going to control how North Andover looks, where they're going to build, and how many people are going to live in North Andover based on the decisions we made over the last 4 or 5 years that we didn't listen to the residents. And because of that, we have a real problem on our hands. Now, the moratorium I'm suggesting has nothing to do with affordable housing because it's exempt from affordable housing. What has happened in the past is, as stated by the town manager, is that because we did not comply with the state law, we are now further behind than we were before. And so what happens now is that the developers can now develop almost wherever they want because we haven't hit that mark. That is a real problem for us, and there's no end in sight.
Thank you. Janice, same question. What are your thoughts on housing and retail development and planning going on in North Andover? How will these impact our community, and what role do you play on the select board on projects such as these? You unmute, please. Unmute. Thank you.
You got it. Not all projects are necessarily good for our town, and the most critical component to anything we move forward is that we do our due diligence. That means we involve the planning board, the conservation commission, the zoning board of appeals. They are inherently required to do traffic studies, environmental impact studies, and study the impact on our schools. All of this is part of their day-to-day work. So the other really important part is that all parties involved must have a seat at the table. This is work I already do as a member of the Merchants Association. I'm able to see how we can help our small businesses and what might be useful to them. And this is absolutely work I will continue to do as a member of the select board. I will remain steadfast in bringing all parties to the table, doing due diligence, and making sure that we only move forward with plans that are beneficial to our community.
Thank you. Richard, same question. What are your thoughts on housing and retail development and planning going on in North Andover? How will these impact our community, and what role would you play on the select board on projects such as these?
Okay, thank you for that. Let me first start with the retail development. So my family owned a business in North Andover for close to 60 years, and we were on Main Street. And for most of those years, there was very light retail on Main Street. I would like to continue to work to try to bring retail to Main Street. We did a redevelopment on the Brad Street School. We brought some new retail shops there, and actually where you are right now in the studio. So I would like to continue to try to bring retail downtown in North Andover. With respect to the housing development, I feel that having been on the zoning board, I would politely disagree with my fellow candidate, Mr. Joe. I'm sorry, Joe. That we are predatory 40B is not a ring in the alarm. It's a real possibility. Developers are not going to sit back and wait. And if we go a 40B route for a place like Royal Crest, we might lose the opportunity to work with the developers. I'm not saying that I'm in favor of Royal Crest right now, because the way it sits now, I am not. But I think we need to do our due diligence and continue to work with them and get to a project that we can all be happy with. Although we're not all going to be happy, not everyone will be happy, but we need to try to get to a reasonable. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Start with Janice. Do you think the gas crisis and pandemic have impacted the role of town government and select board? If so, how and what lesson can we apply moving forward?
I think it's incredibly important to recognize that the role of the select board is very varied. And so, yes, the last couple of years have brought to light the fact that we do need to be able to manage crises. And I think that's actually a really great learning point for us. It's something, having lived through, honestly, both the Columbia gas explosions, where we were out of our house for 5 weeks after being home and cold for 4 weeks. And also my family having gone through having COVID. What hits home for me is that my role on the select board will be, again, to stay in tune with the community and make sure that everybody's voice is heard, and make sure that we are incredibly good at communicating what needs to be communicated. That was something that was lacking during Columbia Gas, and our elected officials stepped up, and I volunteered and went door to door to make sure that people had what they needed. And I would absolutely do that again. That's part of what being on the select board is all about.
Thank you. Richard, same question.
Could you repeat it, please?
Sure. Do you think gas crisis and pandemic have impacted the role of town government and select board? If so, how and what lesson can we apply moving forward?
Okay, yes, 100% it has impacted. I think we as a town have learned a lot from these two crises. We first experienced along with our neighbors, Lawrence and Andover, a literal explosion during Columbia Gas. And during that time, I had the opportunity to work in one of the shelters, or the only shelter in North Andover at the high school. And I saw the true generosity of North Andover townspeople at that time, bringing in food, personal items, coffee, whatever people needed. But as a role of a select person, we really ended up having to get into our hands dirty, get in there and really try to work with people. And really the recovery has been what we are working hard on now, in trying to get businesses back up and running, getting people the financial help they need. I'm part of the Affordable Housing Trust, where we've worked to get rental and mortgage assistance to families in need, people that have lost their jobs. So we've done a lot to try to get into the community and try to make sure businesses and individuals are getting through this crisis.
Joe, same question.
I'll tell you, even with these unprecedented disasters that we have, I think we always learn on these things, no matter where you are, what you're doing. But I am extremely proud of the response that we've seen from our fire, our police, our emergency response. We've even seen people from different departments come together. Jeff Coco took some leadership and turning the high school into a refuge. The pandemic, the same way. We've seen town officials come in, the town manager helping out, trying to get the people, the seniors to the centers in Lawrence and in Danvers, putting out flyers, communicating with them as much as they can. I think a lot of these departments have come together, and it shows how great a place it is to live in North Andover. And we can even see some of the money that we've been able to get and to the businesses. I think there were a couple of phases that we went through. $300,000 may have gone to some of the businesses that were hurt the hardest. We've seen a gift card program that helped out businesses. We've seen DPW get involved. So we've seen all the departments get involved, including the select board and the town manager. And I'm extremely proud to live in North Andover when we see those things. And I know they're always capable of doing that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. We'll start with Richard. What are your general thoughts on Stephen Estate and how the town can best move forward with this property? Specifically, are you satisfied with the fireside catering proposal?
Another great question. So the Stevens Estate is a place that is near and dear to my heart. As I have said earlier, I spend a lot of time there walking in the woods around Stevens Estate, thinking about the estate. I know we've had a couple of different proposals out there for work to be done or to be transitioned in Stevens Estate. We had a proposal for a lease option a couple of years ago, which we loudly and clearly heard from the town that was not the option that they wanted to go. So we then took and we assigned or we commissioned a citizen committee to look into some possibilities of the Stevens Estate. The committee was made up of people who were both in favor and not in favor of the rental or the lease of the Stevens Estate, and they came back with an RFP that we submitted. Unfortunately, we have only gotten one respondent. It's a very qualified, a very good respondent. I think we still have to go through. We haven't really reviewed it as a board yet. We'll be doing that tomorrow night, but I think the response was strong. However, one thing I've learned is that a single response may not always be the best way to go. So we will definitely be looking at the response.
Thank you. Same question, Joe.
Yes, thank you. I think we're moving in the right direction with the Stevens Estate. I love the idea that they bought it years ago. I've been there before. I've had activities there before. It's a great facility. It's my understanding now that they have outsourced the management of that facility and that they've received one bid on that facility. What I would like to see, if I could, is to be outsourced again. I don't know if we can. I would talk with legal counsel. I'd also like to get some ideas from the steering committee who put this together and get the thoughts from the trustees of the estate. So my first reaction to that was one bid. I'd prefer to get multiple bids just to see the options that we have available to us in the town. They entrusted us, the select board, to care for that estate, and I want to do the best I can for the town and for the people on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Janice, same question.
So the Stevens Estate is a really great example of how you make forward progress when you bring people together. We heard loudly and clearly a couple of years ago that people were not happy with that plan. And so we took a step back. We brought people of various views to the table, and what happened was magical. Essentially, they got to work together to come up with a plan that people on all sides agree with, and we're in that process right now. The bids have been submitted. Like we said, we've had one bid that, I haven't fully vetted it yet because it hasn't really been discussed publicly, but I will certainly take the time for that. As I do with any decision I make, I will do my due diligence. And if that proposal addresses preserving public use of the land, preserving the integrity of the building, and removes sort of the financial burden from the town, I certainly would consider supporting it. I think we definitely have the opportunity to move forward with what's happening at the Stevens Estate.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Joe. What component of the master plan or the facility master plan are of particular interest to you and why?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question. It was really muffled.
Okay, I'll repeat. What
It's still,
I'll repeat. What component of the master plan or the facility master plan are of particular interest to you and why?
okay, I think it had to do with the master plan and the master facilities plans. I think all of those plans, I think it's great to have a comprehensive approach to all of those. If it's the facilities planning in order to address some of the buildings that we have, whether or not you're going to relocate them, or whether or not you're going to renovate them. I think those are all good plans. I think the problem sometimes is that they need to be updated, particularly when you have a lot of change in the community. And in particular with the master plan, I think that gives you some great strategies on some of the elements that we're working on. There were 7 elements in that plan. We've had subcommittees now coming up with strategies for each of those elements, and I think it's great. But I think you need to dig deeper into some of those numbers. But I also think that with those, you really get an understanding of what the town wants and some of the major concerns that they have. And I think you need to listen to those concerns. And I don't think we have. And in fact, I think we've done the opposite. And I think we've really caused some real problems down the road. And I've discussed it before. But that master plan is a good place to go if you want to find out what's near and dear to the people in this town. And I can tell you right now, they were ignored.
Thank you, Joe. Janice, same question. And I just would like to know, can you guys hear me?
Now we can.
Excellent, thank you. All right, Janice, same question. Let me know if you need for me to repeat it.
Could you repeat it, please? It was a
Sure
little muffled.
can. What components of the master plan or facility master plan are of particular interest to you and why?
So at this point, I think it's incredibly important that we focus particularly on our schools. I want to work to move the plan forward to figure out what buildings need assistance and come down to a very, very detailed, firm plan of how we can support our schools' facilities and how to move forward with that. And so I absolutely will do the work again to bring stakeholders to the table to make sure everybody has a voice and dig deep into those issues and work collaboratively. It's incredibly important that the school committee and the select board can work collaboratively. And I want to be able to do that so that we can support our schools with a great plan in the best way possible.
Thank you. Okay, Richard, the same question.
Okay, sure. So if I'm looking at the facilities, not the facilities, the master plan. So there's a lot in there, as Joe alluded to. There's a lot in there, and there's over 103 initiatives in there. And so what we've done is put together, and what we never wanted to do is put that plan on a shelf and just let it sit like prior plans have done. So this plan was completed in 2018. As Mr. Finn said, we had quite a bit of community input. I was there at the sessions. There were a lot of post-it notes that were floating around, and the organization that put it together did a tremendous job coming up with the plan. I do take a little bit of exception of saying that it was ignored. I don't think has been ignored. We're working on it. We've got a committee that's gave us their second report just 2 weeks ago. They're taking the 103 different initiatives and they're breaking those down and trying to address them in consumable numbers that they can actually get accomplishments. We've already had one proposal in front of us and we're looking for additional ones, but the committees each are taking separate of the 7 sections of the document and trying to come back with recommendations on how we can fulfill that document.
Thank you.
The town is working on it.
Thank you. Okay, next question is from a community member. As our town become more racial and ethnical diverse, how do you see the select board role in diversifying town government? We'll start with Janice with this question.
It's a great question. One of the most important roles of the select board is to remove barriers to participation. And so simply by working hard to do that, by being communicative and open and talking to people about what prevents them from engaging, when we work to remove those barriers, by its very nature, we will be increasing participation and access to all members of our community, and that is incredibly important.
Thank you. Richard, same question.
I'm sorry, could you repeat it?
Sure. As our town become more racial and ethnical diverse, how do you see select board role in diversifying town government?
Sure. So after all of the unrest last summer, we did commission a diversity board to help and to guide us in those help and make some of those decisions. And it's a difficult process, and we've tried hard to try to live up to that. I think the board needs to, we have so many boards and committees in town, and I think having a reflection of the diversity in the town on those boards is an important aspect. We are, part of our job as on the select board is to make those appointments to those boards. And I think we look at that and we try to reflect on those boards what we have in town with respect to racial diversity.
Thank you. Joe, same question.
I spent a great deal of my career hiring people. I started an entire field office in federal law enforcement, and part of that was hiring individuals. And it's so important that people keep in mind in terms of the laws and the human resource policies when it comes to hiring. We obviously want to keep an eye on hiring the most diverse workforce as we can, and that's exactly what we try to do when we're interviewing and hiring people. But it's so important to come up with methods and ways to reach out to different communities so that the people know about the opportunities that we offer them. And we did a very good job of that when we were hiring in our federal law enforcement offices. And I believe we did a very good job when it came to having diversity in the workplace. And I think that's exactly what we would do here when we're bringing people on at boards and committees.
Thank you. We will now end with closing statements, and you will each have 1 minute for closing statement. We'll start with Richard.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So my wife, Kathy, and I chose to raise our children here in North Andover. We were very active in community and in schools. We did our best to try to make this town a tremendous place to work, live, and play, and learn. I've taken the role as a select person very, very seriously, and I've tried to do the best I can to promote all of the best aspects of North Andover. I feel the last 9 years I've served North Andover with dignity, respect, and honor, and it's been a privilege of my life. And I hope you will allow me to continue to serve the community that we all love so dearly. So I'm asking for your vote, one of your 2 votes for Select Board for me, Richard Valencourt. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Richard. Janice?
North Andover needs a leader who's in tune with the needs of our community and ensures that all voices have a seat at the table. I already work in our community every day to help people, encourage engagement, and bring people together. This is the hard work that needs to be done to move North Andover forward. We need to get to work to get our residents vaccinated as quickly as possible so that we can get students safely back in schools and get people into our local businesses. We need to do the work to be certain that every project is properly vetted through all the right channels and that all interested parties are involved in the process. I won't make feel-good promises that I can't keep. We need to do the hard work to focus on our schools as we come out of the pandemic and look to the future. And we need to do the work to make North Andover a community that seniors and young families can afford to be a part of. I pledge to continue the work and invite you to join me. I ask for your vote. Let's get to work.
Thank you, Janice. Joe?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank the moderator and the League of Women Voters for inviting me here tonight. I think North Andover is facing some real complex and challenging issues, and I really believe you should have somebody who has executive level experience on the board, because it's not about just talking about working with people. You have to have the ability to get things done through people. Someone who has actually gone in there and had some experience in policy making, decision making, solving complex problems. We need creative solutions right now to providing affordable housing to our seniors and our veterans, bringing more business to North Andover, protecting and expanding our open space, natural resources, and recreational facilities. My wife, Nancy Oakes, and I raised 3 sons in North Andover, all 3 to graduate from North Andover High School, just as my wife had. I have been heavily involved in the community most of the 21 years in North Andover. I love North Andover. I'm committed to our town and our schools, and I clearly understand the importance of community to our families. If you share some of my thoughts, concerns, I hope you will consider voting for me on March 30th. I would honor your vote. Thank you.
Thank you to the candidates for running for Select Board. While North Andover can work their magic again and bring us the school committee candidates, we would like to thank all the candidates for running for office. Thank you to the crew and volunteer from North Andover CAM, all the planning and production work they do to help make this forum look and sound great, for sharing it with as many of you. And thank you also to the North Andover Town Clerk, Trudy Reed. She has had quite a time stepping into the new community and running the election during a pandemic. Thank you to her, her staff, and to all the volunteers for all they do in helping the election run smoothly. If you would like to volunteer on election day, please contact Town Clerk Office. Finally, thank you to the local North Andover League for planning this event each year to inform citizens prior to our local election, including Heather, the timekeeper, our president, Caroline Cole, and other members as Kathy Stevens. Now, on to our school committee segment. During our last panel this evening, we will hear from 5 candidates running for 2 seats on school committee: David Brown, Joe Hicks, incumbent Andrew McDewitt, Pam Petrowski, and Rebecca Strong. Candidates, please give thumbs up if you can see our timer and if you can hear everything okay. Excellent. We will begin. And reminding you again, you will have 2 minutes for your opening statement, and I will start with David.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson and the League of Women Voters and my fellow candidates. My name's Dave Brown, and I'm a candidate for school committee. Certainly a critical point in the history of the North Andover Public Schools. We need to address the needs of our growing community and the learning gaps created by the pandemic, as well as the systemic issues that have faced our community and our district the last several years. For those that don't know me, I moved to town in the year 2000 with my family. We chose North Andover in large part because of the quality and reputation of the public schools. I feel public education is hands down the best preparation for life in the real world. It's a critical element in the success of any community. All 3 of my children went through the system here, kindergarten through 12th grade. They were successful and they all made their way to very competitive colleges. Now, I realize we were fortunate to have strong students in our family, and that the committee and, of course, the school system have to pay attention to all students and address all their needs. I want to give back to the community, and I want to give all my energy and talent to those schools, even though my children are no longer in them. I think it's important for me to make it clear how I'm different from the other candidates, as there are a lot of us, which is a good thing. First and foremost, I have a long history of volunteerism in the town. It includes working with children of all ages, all school ages, 5 through 18. And it includes service beyond the years when my own children would benefit. And in fact, I'm still doing that. I have many years of management experience as well as professional management education. And when you consider what the real role of the school committee is, that's the strongest background I feel anyone could have. The school committee's responsibilities are supervising and advising the superintendent, approval of the budget, and setting policy, and my professional training and experience is all centered around management. I've successfully negotiated among fierce competitors. I understand how to create win-win agreements, even when opposing sides start from far apart positions. So I hope that I can convince you tonight that you should vote for me on March 30th or sooner. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll have Joe.
Thank you. I'm Joe Hicks. I want to build a better future. That is why I'm running. Our job is to prepare students to be active participants in a democratic society. Students who are ready to take on challenges and solve problems that we don't know exist or can even imagine. Students who have the skills, knowledge, and voice to participate in our diverse world with confidence, empathy, and dignity. Most importantly, students who can not only dream of a future for themselves, but are equipped to achieve those dreams. My professional career has allowed me to learn about the multifaceted needs of the school system. As a teacher, assistant program director, team leader, instructional coach, I understand what it means to be part of a school community. I have the knowledge base and education that is required to ask the right questions and to develop better policies. I have the experience creating and leading teams through examining data, creating solutions, and implementing action plans. I know the impact of what each choice means for the school committee. I've experienced it. This work is not new to me. It has been my passion for almost 2 decades. I care deeply about the future of the school system and the future of our town. I've lived the same frustrations, anger, confusion, joy, and happiness that we all have the past few years. I know what we have experienced, and I think there is something really important and valuable about that shared experience that we must embrace. So when we return to school, I do not want to return to normal. I want to return to something better. Our return is an opportunity to transform our district. To do that will take careful and diligent planning. And that planning begins with you and the choice you make on March 30th. It starts right now. You have the opportunity to shape what comes next for North Andover. I want schools that will always support our young people and always prepare them for what comes next. I want schools that foster deep learning and allow each student to belong and to be celebrated. That is the community that I want us to build, and I hope you join me on this journey. Only together can we build a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Andrew? Andrew? Unmute yourself, please. Unmute.
Okay.
Thank
There
you.
we go. Is that better?
Yes,
All right.
thank you.
Let me first begin by thanking the League of Women Voters for this forum. In the days of the pandemic, it really provides the community with an opportunity to meet the candidates. Thank you for that. My name is Andrew McDevitt, and I'm a current member of the North Andover School Committee. All of the candidates gathered tonight have stepped forward to serve our community, parents, teachers, and of course, our students. We all have a vested interest in the education of our children. As a resident and parent of 3 current North Andover students, I have a vested interest in our schools. What differentiates me from the rest of the candidates, however, is experience. I will continue to look for accountability within the budget process, making sure that every dollar is well spent. My job has been and will continue to be, if reelected, to listen to as many perspectives as possible and to use that to guide my decision and my votes. I've always acted and voted in the best interest of our students and families. I've asked a lot of questions and I've really pushed for answers and accountability. I've worked to negotiate the past 3 contracts with the teachers union and the MOA to return to school in September. While members of the MTA were picketing to not return to school, I was negotiating so that we could return to school safely for our teachers and our students. It was a partnership. And now as the guidelines have changed, I've been working and negotiating with the union this year on returning safely at every single level. It's involved pushing and advocating for a teacher and staff vaccination clinic this past Saturday, where 475 members were vaccinated. We all want our children back in school, but we want them back safely. I've asked hard questions and always advocated for our children. And if you've watched any school committee meeting in the past 9 years, you know I'm not afraid to stand for my beliefs. There's a lot of hard work, commitment, and dedication, and I wish to continue to serve with one of the 4 other candidates here.
Thank you. Pam?
Thank you.
Over the last year, the pandemic has put a spotlight on how dependent our society is on public education. And that spotlight has made worse the challenges our system has put off for a long time. It's time we advocate for public education and demand that our school committee leads the administration and community to truly value its importance for all. Every family deserves to have their voices heard and have the chance to contribute to what makes North Andover schools successful. As an English learner teacher, I am a constant advocate for students and families with the highest need, but sometimes the quietest voices. As a parent, my passion and knowledge of education guide my children as I encourage them to find their voices. These dual life roles also provide me with an intense understanding of the inner workings of a school administration, as well as the compassion for the deeply personal challenges of educating our children. I have volunteered as a Girl Scout leader for years. I volunteered for the PTO at Atkinson since 2008 and served as a room mom. I've coached softball and field hockey, and I co-taught a neighborhood CCD class. I am highly qualified to advocate for all. Please vote for me, the school committee candidate who will continue to advocate for all with the same passion that has guided the last 20 years of my career in education and 17 as a parent. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca? Rebecca?
Sorry,
Unmute yourself.
I'm muting.
Okay.
I'm muting.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for putting on this candidate forum. My name is Rebecca Strunk, and I'm running for school committee. I'm a lifelong North Andover resident and a graduate of Franklin School, North Andover Middle School, and North Andover High School. My husband and I built our home on Forest Street 10 years ago. We have a third grader and a fifth grader at the Annie Sargent Elementary School. I graduated from UMass Amherst and majored in accounting, and I obtained my MBA from Boston University with a concentration in finance. I have worked in the field of accounting for nearly 25 years. I was an external auditor for a public accounting firm, a corporate accounting manager for a global biotech company, as well as a full charge accountant for local businesses. I currently work at a wealth management firm in Linfield, and I am involved in small business accounting and tax return preparation. My journey through NAPS laid a solid foundation for my academic and professional success. The main reason I'm running for school committee is because of the school closures related to the pandemic. I'm the only candidate who has been publicly vocal about my desire to return all students safely to the classroom. I am pleased that a plan has been set in motion for our youngest learners. I will continue to fight for a full, safe return for our older students. Communicating and implementing clear plans will be paramount in giving students hope that we are moving toward normalcy. I will ensure the committee and administration is held accountable for these plans. We need to return our public schools to a place of academic excellence, deal with unfinished learning, and support students socially and emotionally. My background in accounting makes me uniquely qualified to understand budgetary and financial issues that may arise. I would like to seek out where budgetary efficiencies can be recognized and turned around to benefit both students and educators. Having been an external auditor as well as working within corporate accounting, I understand how to look at complex financials from both the outside in and the inside out. I will be your voice. I'm touched by the stories you have shared with me. This has been an extremely challenging year for all of us. Our children are true heroes, and we should provide the academic excellence they deserve.
Thank you. Thank you. Now we'll start with our 1-minute questions. And our first question will go to Joe. What are some lessons learned from educating students during a pandemic that would guide your policy decision or budget directives?
Thank you. I think it's important that we acknowledge in this moment what we've gained in this horrible, hard, difficult year. First, we have now access to technology, and we've learned better about how to use it in the classroom. We've embraced learner-centered instruction, which leads to more engagement. We've learned new ways to give targeted support. We have been asked to think through all the small details and obstacles that stand in students' ways, and we've developed more clear and explicit directions on how to help our students. We developed new ways to have students collaborate with each other. We've seen the positive impact of having small class sizes. We've seen how amazingly independent our young people can be at an early age. We've given kids more authentic opportunities to solve problems and to learn how to manage time. We've learned about the power of choice and the power of trust, and we've experienced how important it is to develop strong relationships with our students and have strong SEL supports in place. These are all things that we need to hold on to and that we need to leverage as we move back into school, so that when we return to school, we can continue to support our kids in the very best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Andrew. Same question.
Thank you. Thanks. I think the first thing that we need to acknowledge as we start to think of lessons learned is just the massive amount of credit that we need to give to the students. You know, the fact of just coming into school and wearing masks and, you know, going through all of the different changes as it relates to safety protocol and spacing and even riding the buses. I think they have been absolutely wonderful throughout this entire process. At the same time, I think we need to give some credit, you know, to our teachers, faculty, and staff who have really helped to make sure that that's a safe environment for them, and the parents who have really supported them as well. I think one of the things that's really beneficial about this is, you know, through COVID funding, there's been a massive influx in technology. We were definitely lacking with some of the one-to-one relationship between devices and students, and that has given us an opportunity to expand that. And I think that all of that is definitely a key to us moving forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam, same question.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Sure can. What are some lessons learned from educating students during a pandemic that would guide your policy decision or budget directives?
So as a teacher who's currently teaching during the pandemic, this is a really great question to answer. And I think that as I developed my own lessons this year, I had to change my mindset a little bit about what was really and truly important. And I think that as I've done that and as I've worked closely with my students, I teach beginner English learners. And if there's nothing harder to teach besides maybe teaching our young students how to read, it's teaching newcomers how to speak English through a screen. And I have students who are in person and on a computer at the same time. And so I've really had to change and focus change my focus on what's important with my classroom. And student engagement has always been something that I focus on. But this year, really the most important thing is getting our students to feel like they're part of a community. Because if they don't feel like they're part of a community, then they're not going to learn and feel trusted and feel like they can take risks to learn.
Thank you. Rebecca, same question.
Could you just repeat the question one more time,
Sure.
please?
What are some lessons learned from educating students during a pandemic that would guide your policy decisions or budget directives?
It's an excellent question. I've learned a lot about educating and having my own children educated in a pandemic environment virtually. My children are currently in the hybrid method. I find the greatest lesson learned is how children have become incredibly independent and very tech forward. All children have been able to troubleshoot and ensure that their days go on smoothly, that they maintain a solid schedule. Developing that independence, especially for some pivotal years, 5th grade, 8th grade, senior year, are really important. They're important life lessons. And also learning how to connect more closely through a virtual environment. I find that that's been a challenge, but a lot of these children have been very resilient in being able to establish a solid connection.
Thank you. David, same question.
Sure. I've had the pleasure this year of getting into the classroom myself as an educator for the first time since I was in grad school. It's been eye-opening. I have to say the students, the parents, and the teachers have all learned some good skills that'll serve them well going forward, and pretty much have adapted as best as could be expected. I think it's really interesting. Parents, I think, have seen up close and personal how education really works, much more so than they probably ever had before. And, it's kind of seeing how the sausage gets made, and it can be kind of difficult for them. But my experience so far has really been pretty positive. I think the students have reacted really well. They really want to be there. And I think one important budget thing that we have to be concerned with in planning going forward, how to make up for the gaps, the incredible gaps that have occurred over the past year and a half. We're going to have to set aside some money for that. We're going to have to do a lot of planning to address that as the next year or 2 or 3 even go forward. It's going to be a big challenge.
Thank you. Next question, we'll start with Andrew. Do you think budget priorities or policy should change the address the learning loss experience during a pandemic? If so, how?
Great question. I actually voted against the budget this past February when we did pass the budget because there was funds that was in there. They were recovery services funds, and in my opinion, they were not allocated correctly, directly based on data of where we needed to spend those funds. So, anytime we are spending money, it is a school committee's obligation to ensure that those are being spent correctly and accurately. So when we start to take a look at that, it's not just putting staff into classrooms in order to help students learn. It's what are the tools that teachers need in order to get the students, get through to the students, to connect with them in order to do that. And so, it might be different things at different levels, but the data at this point, really has not been presented on how we're going to spend that. And so I think that that's a key thing, that we have that data that can make that decision, and then we can allocate appropriately for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Same question, Pam.
Thank you. I think that's it's a really good question, especially as we are getting ready to move our students forward and into school. There's going to be a lot of data that needs to be collected and to determine where exactly our students' learning losses are. And I think actually at the last school committee meeting, the team of teachers that came on that started to present that information have done a really great job. And I would have liked to have heard the rest of their presentation, but it sounded like they were doing a really fantastic job already assessing the needs of our students. I would say that we really need to look at the online resources that are available. It's not enough to have Chromebooks available to every student, but we need to have curriculum that's available as well, so that teachers aren't spending their time making resources actually usable for online. We're going to need extra staff for social emotional needs and extra staff training for social emotional needs as we bring our students into schools. And so all of that is going to take some serious budget refining.
Thank you. Rebecca, same question. Unmute, Rebecca.
Oh, I'm sorry, I was muted. Well, as I've described before, accounting and finance are in my wheelhouse. Understanding budgets and how they're developed is a critical part of what I've done in my past. And, in terms of being at, it's really critical to take a hard look at those budgets, the line items, how specifically the funds are being used, and whether or not that those are efficient ways to benefit our children and our educators. Our educators need additional resources, additional training, additional tools, not only for actual teaching, but to help support on a social and emotional level for all of their students.
Thank you. David, same question.
Okay, well, I think similarly, I've spent a good deal of my career in management roles and senior management roles where budgets are critical and happen all the time. I think we need to look at this in a similar way. You got to look at performance, you need to assess, and you need to improve. And I think that we need to take a hard look at how that works and plan. I agree that there's going to be, well, as I said earlier, there's going to be incredible gaps that we're going to have to fulfill. And I think we may need to look at some creative ways to do that. In addition to some of the ideas people have already mentioned, I think there could be some community involvement that could help. Get folks from the community to come in, maybe do some tutoring, right? maybe provide that social and emotional support without it necessarily having to come directly from funds, although certainly funds will be needed.
Thank you. Joe, same question.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Sure can. Do you think
Thank
budget
you.
priorities or policies should change the address the learning loss experience during the pandemic? If so, how?
Thank you. I think one of the things we have to start with is that we keep using that term learning loss. And as an educator, that term has always bothered me a little bit. I think that term is predicated on the fact that our kids have lost something the past year and a half. And certainly we have met some challenges, but we also have to keep in mind the things that our kids have gained. We do know that there is going to be moments and there's going to be parts of the curriculum that kids have not yet learned. And I want to stress that part, yet. And we do know that there are moments in the curriculum that teachers have not yet had the opportunity to teach. But we also know that kids are resilient and that they've done some great work the past year. And we do have to develop some assessments to figure out where our kids are so that we can meet those needs. And to do that, we are going to have to spend some time and give our teachers the support and the resources and literally the time to work across grade levels to figure out what has been taught and what has been learned so that we can mitigate those as early and quickly as possible. But I'm also really optimistic about the future because we've learned so much about how we can reach our kids and we can address anything that has not yet been taught very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this question is from an 8th grader, and it's a 2-part question. And we'll start with Pam. Do you agree or disagree with bringing students back to school this year? Should it depend on staff vaccination? And how will you handle the fact that it is very hard to get students 3 feet apart in school? What could the school committee do to support school implementing this state-mandated transition?
It's a really great question, and it seems to be the hot question of the month. I don't know. So it's a really hard question to answer, to be honest with you. I think that any staff member or person who works in a school should be able to be vaccinated before the schools are opened up. Do I think that that's going to happen? It's hard to say. We're working really hard for it. I got my vaccine last week. I was lucky enough to get it. I was also really sick from it for about a week. And so I'm glad that I got it. And I hope that anybody who wants to get their vaccine is able to get the vaccine before the start of school. I know that space is an issue. And I know that, again, at the last school committee meeting, there were lots of really great conversations happening between the administration and the union, and going in with that can-do attitude of how can we make this happen? What creative ways can we space out our students, especially when it comes to eating, right? That's one of the biggest concerns. But I think that some really awesome conversations have already started to happen. And I know that there's some great plans that are coming. It just takes a lot of teamwork and creativity.
Rebecca, same question.
Thank you. Throughout my candidacy, I've been very vocal about wanting to get all of our students from K through 12 back to school safely, full time. I can't reiterate it anymore how important that is. I've received many emails, calls, texts from parents who are distraught, telling me that their children feel like they're failing socially, emotionally, and academically, and it breaks my heart. In terms of vaccination, I think it's critical and an excellent step in the right direction to prioritize teachers for vaccination so they do feel safe going back into school. It's really critical. Students do their best learning when they are in the classroom with their teachers who are the experts in shaping their minds.
Thank you. David, same question.
Thank you. You know, this is like the $1 million question, right? How do you get everybody back and have everybody feel safe? You know, I think that obviously there's no question it's superior to have everybody in person. I think everybody wants that. Everybody also would like to feel safe that they're there. You know, it's kind of out of our hands for some of the grades already, right? It's going to happen. I think we all have to react and do the best we can with that. I can't understand for the life of me why teachers and staff were not way up high on the list in the very beginning. That just mystifies me. But, I guess one other I like the idea of creative solutions. I'm a big fan of turning problems upside down and looking at them the other way. That's what engineers do. And I think we need to get creative like that, do everything we can to figure out how to space kids apart, do the best we can. And then ultimately parents get to choose, do they want their child in school under the best circumstances we can provide, or do they want to keep them home? And I'm out of time.
Thank you. Joe, same question.
I will say that I just absolutely love the questions that our 8th grade students have been asking. They're so detailed and they're really on point in terms of what the important things to talk about are. So thank you to them. I'm really excited to return to school. I chose to be an educator a long time ago because I like school. I miss my students. I miss working with my teachers. I miss people. I miss talking to people face to face. I miss having lunch with my friends. I've experienced that type of environment just as all the students have, and I'm very excited to get back to being in school as soon as possible. I'm incredibly thankful to the administration and our state representatives for getting a vaccine clinic up so that our teachers can be vaccinated quickly to make sure that we can see this happen as safely as possible for everyone on April 5th and April 28th. I know space is always going to be a concern, and that just speaks to the limited space that we have always had, especially at our middle school. And that is a problem that the pandemic has brought to the forefront that we're going to have to continue to talk about and solve quickly.
Thank you. Andrew, same question.
Perfect. Thank you. To begin, our students K to 5 will be back in classrooms on April 5th. Middle school will be back no later than April 28th, and the high school will be coming up soon, and hopefully you'll tune into the school committee meeting on Thursday night, and I think you'll hear more about that. Regarding whether or not teachers and staff are going to get vaccinated, when we started the process, we had about 650 teachers and staff. A number of them already had vaccinations due to whatever conditions. So we had about 600. When we started working to try to get the clinic out there, we needed about 450 or so. And so, through the numbers that already had them, we were able to vaccinate every teacher, faculty, and staff who needed one, and it was available to them on that Thursday, and I know that they were appreciative to it. Regarding the distancing, distancing is definitely an issue at all of our schools, most certainly the middle school. I will say that there's a plan in place. You'll hear more about that on Thursday night. The union and the staff have been fantastic about developing the guidelines to ensure 3 feet and safe distancing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question. Given the increased diversity in our schools, what are your thoughts on how the North Andover Public School should address issue of social justice, equality, and inclusivity? We'll start with Rebecca.
Sorry, I wasn't ready for that. I never know when my ticket's going to be punched. Well, I think it's really critical to embrace diversity within our schools, whether it's race, ethnicity, sexual identity, socioeconomic. We have a wonderful platform called the RAISE platform that has been implemented for quite some time. And it represents respect, achievement, inclusion, service, and empathy. And I think all of our students embody all of those and practice those regularly. And I feel that they are prepared to deal with whatever level of diversity issues or social justice issues, just having those initiatives firmly in place. It's important that there is equity of opportunity across all of those groups, as well as focusing on inclusion and making everyone feel comfortable and allowed to have a conducive and fulfilling educational experience.
Thank you. David, same question.
Thank you. So this is, a very important issue. This has already been stated, right? It's sensitive. It needs a serious approach. And I'm not saying that it hasn't begun already, but it probably needs to be emphasized and enhanced. I would think the entire staff, students, everybody involved in the system probably could use some education on that. And I would recommend that we look into ways to do that, to facilitate that, so that everybody's feelings and biases and stuff can be addressed, and that they can be worked on. And I think that would probably be the best way to go about it. Try to bring folks together, educate them, make sure that everyone's awareness is enhanced so that they can be sensitive to those around them and build a real community.
Thank you. Joe, same question.
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Given the increasing diversity in our schools, what are your thoughts on how the North Andover Public School should address issues of social justice, equality, and inclusivity?
Thank you. Equity work has always been at the core of who I am as an educator and what has been my mission for the almost 2 decades I've been in the classroom. I've continually looked for ways to embrace and open a dialogue with my students and to empower them to be aware of what their world is and the role and the voice that they can have in that world. I think it's really important that we acknowledge that our community is becoming more diverse, and we need to welcome that with open arms and celebrate the diversity that exists in our community. It's one of the things I'm really excited about being part of North Andover for. We need to examine what the everyday moves we are making and how we're supporting our teachers and our students in the work that they do each day. We need to make sure that our curriculum is embracing and celebrating all the different diversity that we see in our classroom. We have to make sure that the students are able to see themselves in the curriculum and see themselves in positions of power. And we need to make sure that they see themselves having a legitimate voice in the community. If we can't do those things, then we can't develop a culturally sustaining curriculum that allows students to have a legitimate voice.
Thank you. Thank you. Andrew, same question.
Over the past number of years, we've definitely seen our schools become more diverse. And I think it was in the class of 2019 where we had over 30 different native languages that our graduating class, they started off not native speakers of English. And I think that speaks volumes to the type of community that this is. And in North Andover, to have 30 other languages other than English represented here, I think is fantastic. And I think that there's been some number of really good steps that have been taken. We've started a joint certificate program with students with their linguistic abilities. There's a tremendous amount of clubs and opportunities for students to celebrate and embrace different nationalities, different cultures, and awareness. And I think today our students are, based on technology that they have available to them, they are so socially active and they are so aware. And it's truly refreshing to see. And I know we have great conversations around our dinner table about that, and hopefully others do as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Pam, same question.
Thank you. So I'm actually really happy to hear that our community is growing in diversity. One of the reasons that we loved being part of the Atkinson School is because it is a really diverse school community, and our children were exposed to some really awesome, rich cultural experiences. Atkinson has done a really great job of using those raised standards and inclusivity with that school community. I think as we move forward and there's more diverse population across the schools, we need to look at things like including some parent liaisons in the district to help with families who are new to our culture. Navigating the systems of the United States school system is not easy, even as a person who's from here. And so if we can get some supports with transitioning our families in, making sure that we have translators when needed, and then celebrating those students' successes like the Seal of Biliteracy that is offered for students who are truly and fully bilingual. Those are the steps in the right direction.
Okay, thank you. And I'll have David for the next, start with David, next question. Do you think the schools should continue to offer some kind of remote learning or alternative learning opportunities for students who may benefit even after COVID restrictions have lifted? We'll start with David with this question.
All right, thank you. Actually, yes, I do think that is a good idea to augment the methods we have now, because there are students who learn differently. All students learn differently, but many students learn differently. And I think for some, that approach could really benefit them. I've had some in my class this year on IEPs and that where I've been told by parents that they actually, in some cases, their children are doing better than before because of that structure. It's a lot on the teachers for sure, but it has some benefits. So I do think it's at least something worth exploring, that there are students who may benefit from it. And obviously there's some practical considerations to look at, but I'll say again, I think it is worth exploring. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe, same question.
I think one of the wonderful things that the silver lining in all this past year is that we learned a lot about what it means to be in a classroom and how kids can learn best. And I have certainly experienced in my own teaching and my work with people that sometimes online learning can be the thing that helps a student engage even more. And if that is the case, then that's something we certainly want to hold on to and move forward as an option. And we also have to think about why might that be the case? What is it about online learning that could be good for some students that we would want to then hold on to? And I think that goes back to what makes kids feel the most comfortable, allows them to build the best relationships, and makes them feel safe in their learning. And if we keep that in mind and allow online learning to be an option, that's great, but we also have to keep in mind what can we do to make students feel safe about returning to school and know that when they're back in the building that they can continue to have that same success in person. Because without that safe environment, our students are always going to be at risk of not doing as well as they can be.
Thank you. Andrew, same question.
Again, thank you. I think that that's a great question, and I definitely think that we need to explore what that may look like, and also the number of families that may want to take advantage of that. It may not be a massive amount of numbers, but I think that, as other people have already started to mention, students learn very differently. I know friends of some of my own children, they have opted out to be in the OLA environment because they enjoy it. They just, it's an enriching experience for them. I do think that if we do have students who do that we have opportunities to bring them back for the social interactions with other students, because I think that that is so critical to how they develop. And, as we start to look at this, we may look and not have enough students, for example, in our town to do this maybe in, let's say, 3rd grade or, some other grade that's there. And do we have a partnership in a neighboring community? We already have partnerships with special education. Maybe we have an online partnership with a neighboring town as we start to explore this. So great question. Thank you.
Thank you. Pam, same question.
Yeah, I think it's a great question too. And I think it's just a testament to how our schools have changed and adapted and evolved through this whole thing. One of the things that I've had a really unique opportunity this year is because I'm teaching students in person and remotely at the same time. And while that's really, really hard to do, and I don't have all of the right tools and resources to do it, if one of my students misses the bus, he or she can still log on to our Google meeting in the class and not miss the content that we have for the day. So that's really something that's been great. I do think that it would be a really great thing to explore further for some of our families who have whatever reason that they need to keep their kids home or choose to keep their kids home. But I do think we really do need to look at what that looks like with resources and technology that's available, because I know that I'm doing it without the proper technology and resources. So if we're going to do this, we need to do it right. We need to have the curriculum, the technology, and the staffing.
Thank you. Rebecca, same question.
Thank you. This is definitely an excellent question. I think the pandemic has really shed some light on this opportunity for the town to look into a real robust online learning platform. Children have different learning styles. Some children who were failing in the class are excelling on the online platforms, and vice versa. I think we need to leave that option open, but we need to maintain some consistency in terms of curriculum, what is being offered both in the classroom, So it translates to what is being offered in an online platform. So everybody comes out having the same curriculum level. This also is an interesting point. Many people may choose to go online, and that may help ease the overcrowding of the schools as well. So if we have a larger portion of our student body who decides to choose OLA or an online learning platform, that may help alleviate that as well.
Thank you. By March 30th, the voters will have the opportunity to vote for 2 of you for school committee. You each may take up to 1 minute to give a closing statement. And we'll start with Rebecca.
Guess I'm back on. My message throughout my candidacy has been steady and consistent. I'm the only candidate who has been outspoken about and has been squarely focused on safely returning all children to the classroom. I will work with the committee and administration to come up with strategies on how to assess and deal with unfinished learning and returning North Andover Public Schools to a level of academic excellence. With nearly 25 years of accounting experience, it makes me uniquely qualified to understand and analyze budgets and other financial issues that may arise. Having 2 children in elementary school and having come through the school system myself, I have a long-term vested interest in the public schools. We can achieve academic excellence, close the unfinished learning gap, and support all students socially and emotionally, regardless of background. I will set the bar high, and I will put the hard work in to get our children the quality public education they deserve. I will be fair and open-minded and will do what is best for the children in our community. I hope you will cast your vote for me on March 30th. Rebecca Stronk for School Committee.
Thank you. Pam?
Thank you. What this school committee needs is experience, and I have it. I have a master's degree in ESL education, and I have been an educator for over 20 years. I have worked in different school systems under many administrators. I know what good administration looks like, and I know how strong leadership will foster success, communication, and improvements seamlessly. I'm a parent of 3 children in our school district. I have a senior, a freshman, and a 4th grader at Atkinson. I want what is best for all our children. I am dedicated to being part of the team that improves district-wide communication and brings necessary resources and technology to our classrooms across the district. I am an advocate for all students. I ask for your vote and support for one of 2 seats on the North Andover School Committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. Andrew?
Again, thank you to the League of Women Voters for tonight and for the other candidates for being here. It truly takes courage to run for any office, and this is certainly not a regular year and not a regular election. However, now more than ever, we need continued experience on the school committee and someone who's not afraid to ask the tough questions and advocate for our children. Relationships with the administration, the union, FinCom, select boards are all critical as we move forward and try to return to full 5 days a week in April and then continuing forward. It's crucial to have this experience as we start to address the funding gaps as well as the learning opportunities that we have as well. I hope you'll allow me to continue to fight for and advocate for the best for our town, community, and most importantly, our students. It's truly an honor to serve North Andover, and I ask for one of your 2 votes on March 30th at the high school or by absentee.
Thank you.
Not November.
Thank you. Joe?
Thank you. So, how will I work to build a better future? I promise to always be open, transparent, and accessible. I'll hold regularly scheduled office hours so the community knows how and when to talk with me, and so I can always listen to you. I pledge to always support and fight for funding for our music, art, drama, STEM, and athletic programs. I promise to carefully examine our data and ask questions of our leaders about actions being taken to improve student achievement. And I will always advocate for policies that build stronger, more diverse, equitable, and inclusive schools. I will continue to push for culturally sustaining pedagogy. I will advocate for robust SEL programming, and I will be a fierce advocate for LGBTQ+ students. Our students can only learn if they are safe, embraced, and celebrated for who they are. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, The world of the future is in our making. Tomorrow is now. So I ask you to join me, and together, let's build a better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. David?
Thank you to everyone for participating tonight. I want to remind everyone to remember what the school committee's role really is. It's management, it's policy, it's budget. The superintendent is the one and his administration, they're responsible for day-to-day operations, not the school committee. The school committee's job is to hold him accountable for what he does and not to micromanage him. He should always be focused on improvement, the entire district should, and that's measured by performance. I can be passionate about our schools without any emotion or bias towards a particular school. And I think I've clearly demonstrated my ongoing commitment to the success of our town, and nothing could be more important than the success of our schools. I want to reiterate my commitment to devote all my time, skills, and energy to this role. I've got the right mix of qualifications and skills to do so, and I will represent everyone to the best of my ability and always have the interests of the children foremost in my heart. I hope you agree and you will consider me for one of the 2 seats on the school committee on March 30th or sooner, and thank you.
Thank you, candidates. Thank you, North Andover Cam. Thank you, at home watching. Please stay tuned for a brief and important message from the town clerk, Trudy Reed. Then get ready to cast your ballots in North Andover's town election on Tuesday, March 30th.
Good morning. Trudy Reed coming to you from Town Hall in the Town Clerk's office. I just wanted to bring everyone up to date on what's been going on with the annual election soon approaching. So March 30th is the date for the annual town election. The positions include Select Board, School Committee, Moderator, and Housing Authority. The ballot has been set and a sample can be found on the town's website under the Voting and Election tab on the main page. The last day to register for this election is March 10th. And the last day to submit an absentee ballot application or vote by mail is March 24th, 5 p.m., which it needs to be into my office by that date. The ballot box has been put back into place, so we are encouraging residents who are voting by mail or absentee to feel free to use this ballot box. It'll be located behind Town Hall in the Senior Center parking lot as we did last year. It is locked and checked on a daily basis, so it's very secure, and you can access it from your car. You don't even need to get out. So we do have voting in person on Election Day. The Election Day is again March 30th from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. There will be no early in-person voting as we've done for the state elections. All of this information that I've given to you, ballot sample, the application, and voter registration can all be found on the town's website, and I hope to see many of you on March 30th in person. Thank you.